Welcome back to another Katana tone tutorial. My name is Scott. We're doing this for the Gen 3 because I told you I wasn't going to do it for the Mark II anymore, and I meant it. So, we're doing Roots, Bloody Roots by Sepultura from their 1996 album Roots. It is tuned to B, and if you can't tune to B, it's not going to sound right. So, if you got a guitar that you can tune to B, or it's already tuned to B, or you can just tune the top three strings to B, E, and A. Because for the rhythm part, that's all you need. If you want to do the solos, then you're going to have to do B standard all the way down. This wasn't something I planned on doing, but earlier in the week, I was listening to Roots. I was like, how come I've never tried to learn to play that? And I learned it in like 10 minutes. So if you're a beginner guitar player, you can learn this one easily, as long as if you can read tab, or maybe if you even have a good ear. But it's in B standard, so B, E, and A on the top strings, and the rest you can just leave off unless you want to play the solos. So without further ado, let's get into Tone Studio and get working. In Tone Studio, I have the amp set for Crunch. Andreas Kisser, I believe on this album, don't quote me on this, I think he used some Mesa preamps. Well, you can't even use the sneaky amps with the Gen 3 anymore, so you just kind of gotta figure it out. And the Crunch amp was easy. When you're tuning this low, you don't really need a whole lot of gain. So with the Crunch amp and the gain here at 50, I got my volume at 69. And over on my Katana, I think I have the master right now at about, I don't know, it's a little over 50%. But over here I got the bass at 64, 82 on the mids, and 55 on the treble. I do have the bloom on. It just gives it a nice, more rounded, bigger sound to it. And my chain, I've got the mod before the chain, and you'll understand in just a minute. So let's jump into the boost. Before we jump into the boost, I do have a noise suppressor on here, set at 53 on the threshold and 43 on the release. Back over to the booster, I am using a simple Crunch overdrive. I tried some of the older overdrives, and they just didn't sound as good as the Crunch overdrive did. They were either a little too warm or muddy, or just a little too bright. So I've got the Crunch overdrive, and I got the tone at 0, 50 on the drive, 7 on the bottom, and 50 on the effects level. Over here, I've got the direct mix cranked all the way up to 100. So with just the Crunch amp and the gain at 50, with the bloom and the EQ, this is what we're sounding like. Kind of weak. So let's kick on the Crunch. All right. And now with the compressor, it just kind of boosts it a little bit better, makes it cut through a little bit harder, and it sounds good. I've got the tone at 0, level at 50, and 43 on the sustain and attack, and you could crank up that sustain some more if you wanted to, but you don't really need to. Let's hear what it sounded like before. With the compressor on. Going over the reverb here, I just got it on room reverb. I've got it very low on the time, 1 second, 30 milliseconds in the pre-delay. I kept the low cut at 400 and the high cut at 4 because that's what they're set at, and it just didn't seem to be worth trying to mess with those. I got the 5 on the density and 20 on the effects level, 100 on the direct mix. And it's just, like I said, it's a very subtle. We're going to turn the booster off so you can hear it better. So with it off, with it on, like I said, very subtle. You don't even need it really, but I put it on there anyway because I always like to have a little bit of reverb. Booster back on. And lastly, I've got a parametric EQ, amp out, 2 decibels on the low, 40 hertz on the cut, 100 hertz on the low mid frequency, and 4 on the high gain. I kept the Qs at 1, 0 on the high mid gain, 0 on the high gain, but I've got the high cut at 5 and the high mid frequencies at 1 kilohertz and the level at 2. So without it, with the EQ on, It just rounds it out a little bit more. Again, helps it cut through, especially when you're using it on the speaker. I don't know how well it's going to come through on this mix, but I did test it first on the mix, and it sounds a little bit brighter, a little more livelier through a speaker. So keep that in mind when you're working here. That's it. It's that easy. Download it. Have fun. Like I said, it's a super easy song, tuned to B, and get crazy. It's hard to believe. Next year, this album's going to be 30 years old. If it came out when you were young, you're not young anymore. Unless unless it came out the year you were born. But if you were like me and it came out when you were already like 20 years old, you old, man. Anyway, hit that like button if you like this video. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next time.